Yo, what is good? It's your boy Druid, and today we're coming in with a banger. We're coming in with the next episode of my Shroom Saga. The time when, in my freshman year of college, this past spring, I decided to go on a shroom rampage and took shrooms and tripped balls every week, multiple times a week. In this episode in particular, we're going to talk about the time I took shrooms and tripped for the first time. I was on a work shift. It's one of my most favorite memories on a substance, period. Anyways, drop a like down. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments if you like the mic I'm using. I recorded the past video with this mic and forgot to ask or say anything about it, yada yada. That said, let's get right into the story. So like I said earlier, this happened in spring of 2023. At this point in my life, fucks were not given. They were nowhere to be had. I hadn't heard of them. If I had, they got thrown out my back pocket because I don't know, my pocket had a hole in it and they fell out, and I just kept living life that way, you know? Didn't care. And so on this fateful day, we're gonna pick right back off where we left. That morning, I had taken shrooms for the first time. I had eaten my first square that I had gotten from Solo and I's Connect Esther. Solo is one of my best friends. We smoke together all the time. He's one of the first people I ever took shrooms with. I smoke with him more than anybody else. We just, kick it all the time, right? So it only would make sense that the couple first times that we would take them would be together, Theoretically, when you trip balls, you're not supposed to be alone, and I wasn't really intending to do that, and he, felt the same. So, henceforth, it seemed like a good idea. That said, given how my morning went, as in the microdose video that I dropped, I wasn't doing too well, I was feeling pretty rough about it. I wasn't living life that I wanted to, and I usually, at this point in my day, I had already been high at least twice, and I was, just wanting to get high, bro. At this point in my life, marijuana came into my body more than water did. And it's not like I'm always the biggest water drinker. It's pretty common for sparkling ice to be my only source of hydration, but you still get the point. I was inhaling my vegetables more than ingesting anything else, potentially air, like second to air. That was my, came in my mouth, air, weed, speaking. That was how my mouth rolled at that point in time. And on this day, I just was ready to have an emotional lift up. And whenever I went to work, in my head, that meant, okay, I'm not at home, nobody's around to tell me what to do. It's time for me to get high. So as I hopped in the whip, that's exactly what I did. I reached under my seat, pulled out my pipe, loaded a bowl, and, classic Druid, driving with my knees down the downtown, just roasted a bowl and made my way to work. As I said, we had just moved to a new house, so I had some time to kill. This was an hour drive. No shit. It was quite a bit. So, that was that, My usual plan was to drive to school, which was about 25 minutes, and then I'd head on to work the 30 minutes from there, and then just have a long-ass high drive every single night back. And that suited me just fine because it gave me plenty of time to be high and listen to content and fire music, because that's what substances do. They make everything sound freaking amazing. And I just, ended up getting to work, stoned, vibing, and I'm ready to dap up Solo and drop chocolate immediately. I figured, not even thinking about how I had not a great experience that morning. Completely like accredited it to the fact that my mom and granddad were there, and that was what set my whole like mood and mindset off, and why I was just like pretty out of it that whole like first half of my morning. Now that it was the afternoon, evening, I was ready for a complete vibe 180, and I was ready to live life like I had never before, which I did. So, I mean, I stroll up into this place. It's a big box retail store. I don't work there anymore, and that's half of the reason I feel comfortable telling this video, because I did a lot of drugs up in this workspace. Statistically, I went more high to work than not, and that's saying something. I set the precedent, and granted, there were a lot of people that came fucked up to that workplace. I just, like, that was my standard, you know? That was just like, is Druid on shift? Druid is probably zooted. He'll get his job done, but he's probably zooted. That said, I hadn't gotten to the point where I started taking shrooms at work, you know? Just like forewarning, words of advice, this is not something you should do in any sort of professional workspace. The reason I was able to get through with this shroom binge and do it a lot at work was because I had like zero supervision. There was like 3 major departmental roles in the ladder, and those 3 holes in each managerial step like short-staffed significantly. And so, given my position, I was able to just do whatnot. And, you know, as long as I got my job done, hey, that's better than anybody else in my position. Who cares if I'm fucked up while I'm at it, you know? So, you know, same old. I go over to the guest service counter. I tap up Solo. I'm like, bro, game on. Let's get this party started. He looks at me and is like, hey, hold your horses. And I'm just not, you know, having it. Like 2 nights before, or actually I think it was just the night before, he had encouraged me to not take shrooms and then go drive home. And I was completely willing and excited and hyped to do that, which, like, I am very grateful for Solo talking me out of that one. That would have been interesting. Not to say that I didn't drive off shrooms after this point. I'm just saying for my first time, that would have been really wild. Even if it was just a microdose. Because I found that, like, stress levels, no matter what your dosage are, tend to amplify the dosage. It's like smoking while you're taking acid. It just accelerates it so much more intensely. And sometimes that's really fun. Like tonight, the bricks were green and glowing, and I cackled and giggled like a child. I was so delighted by that. But essentially, a couple of minutes, I convinced Solo to, you know, take 2, you know. I take 2 too, you know. Initially I was wanting to take more, and he talked me down, and, you know, it's like bartering. We got to a place where, you know, at least we're taking something, and it's not too much, you know. Either way, Mr. Jiminy Cricket Solo starts doing his thing and reminds me I have to clock in, so I do that. And, you know, I reckon, like, it's gonna take about an hour or so to kick in. I don't really know. I wasn't really paying that much attention in the morning. And, you know, just, I went about my business. I started grabbing carts. I pushed all the salvaged merchandise to the back. I did my whatnot. I was walking throughout the store. And at one point, once I had cleared up pretty much what it needed to be taken care of, you know, I started to, like, just vibe a little bit more. and I kind of like was wondering if it was a placebo thing, or if, you know, I was just like still a little stoned from the ride over, and I just started to see like this visible static, and it's kind of like my consistent telltale sign that I'm beginning to trip. It's almost like you pull up to the function and the music's already slapping. Like, you already know it's gonna be a good time. You already know it's gonna be lit, and it's just like the precursor. You know, it's the forward, it's the foreshadowing of an exciting adventure, and I took that exactly as I thought it was. The best way to describe it is taking a plastic wrap and dangling it, and you could see like the light shimmering, almost as if like when you see light go through raindrops when it's raining. It's kind of that effect, but it's shimmering as if there's plastic wrapping over your entire vision. It's pretty interesting, and it, like, I don't know, kind of ethereal. And I just started laughing and just, trying to keep it down, not really thinking much about it, and just was like, this is going to be awesome, which it was. Like, as I said, this is one of my like favorite shroom memories ever. I just like kept doing my thing, and eventually I had to go back to the back again. I was gonna go grab some trash, and as I passed the sign, there was this cardboard cutout on a wall, like a demographic of like supposed to be whatever's in that section, but I never, like, it was like some weird like bookend that had a bunch of like random stuff on it, but it always had the same yellow sign with a hand holding out a tape measure, and the tape measure was always out to 5 inches. And I looked at that thing in shock, and I was like just laughing at it, because it seems like the tape measure looks so long, but the letters, like the numbers, didn't change. The measurement was still the same. And so in my like dumbness, out loud I went, haha, I got 3 inches on you bitches, and just kept walking, like cackling to myself. I went and grabbed the trash cans, made my way back, snickered at the sign once more, got to the front, took care of the trash, and that was that. I met up with Solo, but for a minute, talked to him, asked him how he was feeling, and he was like, yeah, dude, this is pretty great. Like, I feel really awesome, but I haven't really seen anything. And I explained to him, like, I was seeing like this visible static kind of thing, like as if someone was taking that plastic wrap and like just like, shaking the saran wrap. And he was like, yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I realized that the carts were, needing to be attended to, so I headed out. I went and grabbed the carts, and I could tell that it was coming on more and more intensely, and I was loving every bit of it. It was slightly damp out there. I didn't care. The whole ambiance of the darker clouds and the indoor lights, it just created this crazy like contrast that looked cinematic as hell. I was down for it. And the trees seemed so lush, and the green was so saturated, and the trees, even the patterns, I could tell that if I took more, that they would be moving, because it almost seemed like the trunks in the parking lot and those little curbs with the mulch on top. They seemed to be doing their own thing and vibing too. And so, at one point I did end up like breathing with a tree at a later date, and we'll get to it. That was an insane moment. But yeah, I just was having a time of my life, and eventually I realized there's a ton of carts in this parking lot still. The guy before me, he didn't do too much. Instead of going out into the crowds, he just took a bunch of carts off the wall. Dickhead move. It makes my life harder because I have to fill that wall up before I leave. And I have an hour drive later, so if I, stay like for a while, then it's like I have an hour on top of whenever I'm leaving late. I just, wouldn't mind to get to bed on time because I know the next day I'm gonna have to go to school. And I'm not down for that. So I start grabbing these carts, loading them on the machine, and after they're filled up inside, I head over to this cart wall. And I start loading them in by hand, 6 or 7 at a time. And there's these bricks that line the entire building, that's what the entire building's made out, no shit. But these ones by the cart wall, they're not power washed or pressure washed or whatever you call it. They have like some moss varieties growing on, and this moss, whether the store lights or whatnot, like there's no lights in the parking lot at all, but I just look at it and they are glowing like if somebody went into some sort of After Effects program and did it themselves. Like it seemed like a literal animation. It seemed like a GIF, and I was just so joyful. I was so ecstatic. I was loving every bit of it, and I just started giggling like a kid. I was pushing these carts and just staring at the walls and appreciating like how red the brick was and how green the moss was on the brick as it glowed. And I was like doing heel clicks like the guy from Mary Poppins, and I was just living my best life. And I end up coming back inside, pushing the cart machine in and set it in, and I just have the biggest little grin on my face, and I'm loving it so much. Like, I'm smiling right now just talking about it. Like, oh man, that was such a good day, and just such a good turnaround to what had been a pretty shitty morning. And the rest of the night kind of went the same from there. Good vibes were flowing. Solo was doing his thing. He clearly enjoyed it. I don't think he went as hard as I did. Like, his experience wasn't as crazy. I've noticed that when you're doing physical activity and stuff like that, then sometimes you push your rate of metabolism up or your heart rate up, and it just like it hits your bloodstream or whatever a bit more intensely. I don't know, but yeah, I was just vibing the night out. So much so that when it came time to leave, like, I didn't even really feel like I needed to smoke. I mean, I just put on some music and just vibed out all the way home. Just chilled. I never even thought to check my reflection at any point in time to see like how ridiculous my pupils got. But I just had such a good time, and every single time after that I would always look at that 5-inch sign and say ha ha, just like snicker at it. But yeah, I think this is where we're gonna end the episode today. I hope y'all enjoyed the story. Drop a like if you do. Don't forget to subscribe, support the Druid cause. I hope y'all are safe, stay stoned. Peace.